I spent some time thinking about what is it that everyone here is going to have in common. So, it will keep everyone engaged. And I realized a lot of us, most of us, regardless of what kind of company, what kind of software we're building, have this thing called, dev stack, because we work on software, we build on our local machines, and then at some point we're done, and then we ship it. And I wanted to focus on the part before the shipping. So here is a micro talk, if you will, about the 4 levels of local development ergonomics. So if you're like Jam, you have a bunch of different services. It all starts with one, and maybe you have a front end that needs to talk to it, and then another another problem pops up, and you're like, well, this is a microservice architecture, so I need to make another service for this. Not too long, and now you have maybe dozens of services, and spinning them all up in your local dev environment becomes a chore, right? At Jam, we have, I counted today, 8. I suspect I may have missed some, but it's not just the primary services that you're running on your local machine. They also have dependencies. We need Postgres for data persistence, and we need Redis for caching, and we use Google PubSub that we locally sort of emulate to push events to. And so you start at level 0, you write steps of how to spin up the dev stack in like a readme.md or your Confluence or Notion, if you will. So looks something like this. You have a bunch of steps, you share it with your developers when they get the job. And when the computer is restarted, some of them memorize this, some of them keep looking it up. And notice the Jam command, that is actually a script. If that script wasn't there, this would have been a lot longer. So that takes me to level 1, right? The dev scripts. What you do next is you're like, oh wait, I have these repeatable steps that every developer needs to do. Why don't I script that up? And so you end up with some sort of a shell script that maybe has these different targets, these different functions, run all monorepo processes on line 366. Believe me, that source code is much longer than 399 lines. It's pretty okay, but then at some point kind of becomes unmaintainable. A shell script that does too many things always goes haywire at some point. So then you go into level 2, which is Docker Compose. Hey, I have these microservices, why don't I sort of like compose them together through Docker Compose? Jam skipped that step, so I'm gonna have no example for this. And go straight to level 3, which is Tilt, the topic of today's talk. Well, Tilt is just an open source tool that allows you to declaratively describe your development environment, and then every developer at the company has the same development experience locally. So what used to look like this, in terms of local development instructions, turns into this, which is much simpler. And that's the way we want it to be. Note that the first step is really only necessary the first time. The second step is sort of a gimmick. So it's really just tilt up. Yeah, let's take a look at what it looks like. Let's see. So this is roughly what it looks like. I'm already CD'd into the right directory, and I already have tilt installed. So all I gotta do is just type tilt up. And you get this output. Press space, And voila, you got this nice web UI. Here's a list of all my services, and I can go into this view, and I can see the output of all the services. And the services that are currently starting are flashing on the left side. The services that are green have already started. And here, there it goes. My web service, my main web service just started successfully. Tilt will monitor file changes. It'll restart the service if something happens to it. You can search in your logs. You can group by error levels. You can restart an individual service. It's pretty neat. Behind the curtain, you have this tilt file, inspired by, I suppose, a Docker file, where you very declaratively basically define all your services, with their dependencies. You can label them. The initialization chain is obeyed per the dependency tree. Yeah, that's it. It's just a really neat way to organize your local dev stack. And you don't need to reinvent any wheels, and you can move quickly. Any questions?